Hi, my name is Kelly Munoz. I teach Western astrology and I also do astrology consultations. And I prepared this presentation to show you what are planetary transits and what are the most important points for 2025 planetary transits. So let's start from the basics. What are planetary transits? The planets orbit around the sun. They move at different periods. Some move slower, other ones faster, but when they move, they activate different areas within our natal chart. So let's look at this in this bi-wheel. This is how we normally are going to look at transits. The inner wheel, that is the green wheel, is the natal chart of Nikola Tesla. We're using him as an example. And this wheel will never change. Is how was the sky at the moment that he was born in that location and time. And then on the outer wheel, that is the blue one, is where the planets are located at this moment in time, on this day, in this location. So when the planet move, they activate certain areas of our life or the houses where they come and visit us. And when we have planets on that house, the planets form aspects. Our transitive planets form aspects to our natal planets. And aspects are the energy that flows between planets. So that is the reason why planetary transits are so important, because every time a planet moves on the sky, not only move outside, but it move inside of us, because it's activating certain things and energy in our life at that specific moment and date. Here we can see the time that it takes for the personal planets to go around the sun. Mercury is the one that goes the fastest, and Mars is the one that goes the slower from the personal planets. Now, these days here are approximately, because we need to remember that planets go retrograde. And what that means is not that the planet goes backward. It's just an optical illusion from the point of view of Earth. And when that happens, that creates a pattern that makes the energy of the planet to go inwards. So we often hear about Mercury retrograde because this one happens between 3 or 4 times a year. And when that happens, Mercury represents our mind, our thought process, our communication. So that means that that is a time where we are more contemplative, where we go more into introspection to analyze our life, our decisions, what's going on in our life. So this is the gift of the planets when they go retrogrades, allow the energy to go inwards, to evaluate things in our lives. So when they go direct, that they have the energy and the impulse to move and to take action, we have already come into realizations during the retrograde time. And here we can see how the outer planets move, and they take longer to move around the sun. Especially we see here Uranus 84 years, Neptune 165, and Pluto 250 years. So as we see how they move so slow, they take a long period of time on every sign, on every constellation. So when they move sign, their movement, it is very significant on our energy as an individual and also in the collective consciousness. Each planet has specific characteristics that correlate with the sign and element that it rules. When a planet by transit changes sign, it modifies the way the planet behaves, and therefore it modifies our perception and behavior. It acts like a new filter for our perception of ourselves and reality. So now that we understand what are planetary transits, let's talk about the 2025 planetary planetary transit. 2025 is a very important year because all transpersonal planets will start changing signs, and these mark a big shift in the collective consciousness. So let's look deeper at this transit of Pluto in Aquarius. Even though a star, the first time that it entered Aquarius was in 2023, it went back retrograde 3 times in Capricorn and finally moved permanently for the next approximately 20 years into Aquarius. And what is Pluto? His energy represents transformation. It represents the process of death and rebirth. Pluto is the guardian of the underworld and guards our riches, where we can access this once we have transformed or transcended the limitation of our ego. Pluto placement in our natal chart represents an area in our life where our souls needs to transform. So that's another reason why this movement of Pluto is so significant, because that area of our life where we have Aquarius in our natal chart is an area that is going to go to a deep transformation, that is going to allow us to empower us, because that's what Pluto also represents, personal power, to access our riches. And the next transit I wanted to talk about is the transit of the lunar nodes. The nodes change axis and sign every 1.5 years or 18 months. And the nodes are not planets, but are a very important point in our natal chart that are formed by the interception of the orbit of the moon around the earth and the orbit of the earth around the sun. Those 2 points of interception form what we call the north node and the south node. So every time that the nodes change every 18 months, it is shifting the collective soul purpose. This year in January 11, the nodes change axis and move. The north node move to the sign or constellation of Pisces, and the south move into the constellation of Virgo. The North Node. The North Node in general means the soul purpose, the skill that the soul wants to develop. The North Node represents what our soul must become to fulfill its destiny. It represents life purpose and growth potential. This chain of the North Node into Pisces is the establishment of a higher order, the development of intuition, compassion, and faith. All those are characteristics of the sign of Pisces. It's an energy that wants to move into connecting us into the higher mind, into the heart, to receive inspiration from the spirit, to develop our intuition, to open our hearts to give more value to the soft expression of the heart. We will feel more vulnerable, emotional, and compassionate, especially if we have planets on the sign of Pisces. But also we can tend to escape more into realms of the spirit and dreams. Addiction is another negative quality of Pisces. So we really need to have this present, that this could be also a tendency that we can get into trying to escape reality, not taking care of our earthly duties and responsibilities. So to understand how this transit will impact us more as an individuals, we're going to look in our chart where we have the constellation of Pisces and what are the planets that we have in Pisces and what are the aspects that the nodes by transit are making with our natal planets. And the south node means energy that we are bringing from previous life or karma, experience that we have, skills that we have learned, but also automatic responses. The shift of this south node into Virgo, so it's moving from Libra and now it's moving into the sign of Virgo. And what this means, that means that we are moving from a logical and rational mind. Because remember, the south node is energy that wants to be transformed. And now the focus is into the energy of Pisces. That means that we are transforming our logical mind, that we are transforming our reason, our critical mind. Also transforming our habits, our routines, our connection with our body, our connection with the service that we give. All these are the qualities of Virgo. And this change will help us to shift the mind centered to a heart centered humans. Both signs energy are related to service. Pisces and Virgo, they're both related to service, the service that we give to other ones, but from different perspective. The question here is how our daily routines and habits support our soul. That is a question that we all need to ask ourselves because it's a question that is going to be showing out through experiences that we are going to go through in this next 18 months. How our service to society support also the collective. And the next significant transit is going to be Saturn entering Aries on May 24, 2025. Saturn represents a structure, discipline, limits, responsibility, commitment, fears, and authority. Saturn is the planet that helps us to place boundaries and to build our foundation. Saturn rules time, cycles, karma, fear, maturity, limitations, money, resource, career, discipline, ambition, authority. We can see Saturn as the great mother that helps us to develop through responsibility, through facing the responsibility of our actions, taking responsibility on building boundaries, on achieving our goals. And when we don't do that in our life, then we face the consequence of Saturn as the severe mother that push us through situations in life to develop this inner authority. Through this process, we can also develop our willpower, letting go of fears, letting go of limitations. So the placement in our natal chart where we have Saturn represents restrictions and challenges that we are going to face in order to handle the responsibility of our life and also our career, our goals. So Saturn will retrograde also back into Pisces on September 1st and re-enters Aries on February 13, 2026 and stay there until April 2028. This is a transit that is not going to last very long, but is very significant for the aspects that Saturn is going to be making and also because it's the beginning of a new cycle. The house where we have Pisces and Aries in our natal chart are the houses that are being impacted right now from this transit of Saturn. So we could look at it into our chart and see where we have Pisces, because Saturn is still doing the last movement, the last polishing of that area of our life before it moves into areas to help us to develop a new level of responsibility and determination to achieve our soul goals, dreams, and desires. And the next significant transit is the transit of Neptune in Aries. Neptune represents the collective dream of society. Neptune has no limits because within Neptune the individual self disappears. We become one with everything, and this is why it is also recognized as the path to enlightenment. Neptune represents the psyche, the collective subconscious, illusions, fantasy, dreams, intuition, spirituality, escapism, confusion, delusion. The placement of Neptune in our natal chart represents an area of our life where we are learning a karmic lesson that we have not been able to face, something that we have been not able to assume or confront directly or take responsibility for. This transit of Neptune entering Aries on March 30 and then retrograding back into Pisces on October 22nd, 2025, and then will finally enter again in January 2026 Aries until March 2039 represents a change in the filter of how we see reality. Neptune have been in Pisces since 2011, and the time that have been doing this transit, we have been all working in opening our intuition, our heart, our connection with the spirit realm, and with the things that are more subtle, like dreams, meditation, spirituality. All these energies and topics have become more relevant during all these years of the transit of Neptune in Pisces. So now it's moving into Aries, a complete new energy, and it's a new beginning because it's the beginning of a new cycle, which represents that we are ending a cycle with Neptune and Pisces in the way that we connect to spirit, in the way that we connect to our faith, to religion, to be again, being born again with a new way to connect with the spirit, in a way that is more direct, in a way where we take more action, in a way where we tend to bring spirituality more into reality with more determination, with more courage, with the energy of Aries. So we are closing right now a chapter in our life where we have Pisces since 2011 that we have been working with Neptune in that area. We are closing that area in our life to begin a new chapter with a new energy of renewal that is bringing Neptune in Aries. Another significant transit for 2025 is the movement of Uranus into Gemini. Uranus represents rebellion, revolution, sudden changes. Uranus is our capacity for inspiration, innovation, inventiveness, intuition, and our desire to change, to break free from all structures and belief patterns. Uranus accelerates the mind processes, generating quantum leaps. Uranus is our desire to be free and express our authenticity and individuality. Uranus placement in our natal chart represents an area in our life where our soul has the impulse for a radical change. So Uranus is going to enter Gemini on July 7 and it's going to go retrograde back into Taurus on November 8 and enter again Gemini on April 2026 until August 2032. So this is a transit that is going to last for around 7 years. And to understand this transit and how it's going to impact us personally, we need to look in our chart where we have Taurus, the last degrees of Taurus, and the first degrees of Gemini, because we're going to see this area of our life where we have Taurus, the last transformation, the last radical change for the expression of our individuality and our authenticity. And then when it enters Gemini, it's going to be impacting us, creating a radical change in our mind, a radical change in our perception, and also allow us to live with more authenticity and freedom. And the last significant transit for 2025 is going to be Jupiter. And Jupiter represents willpower, compassion, benevolence, expansion, good fortune, represents unconditional love, morality, ethics, joy. Jupiter maintains the well-being of humanity. Personal development in a person's life is influenced by Jupiter. Our virtues are influenced by the position where Jupiter is in our chart. Jupiter rules spiritual growth, education, philosophy, faith, spirituality. Jupiter's placement in our natal chart dictates our fortune, our personal belief system, and how we expand our horizons. So this transit of Jupiter is going to be changing. Right now, it is on the sign of Gemini, and it's going to be changing in June 9, 2025. It's going to enter into the sign of Cancer. So to understand how this transit is going to impact us, we're going to look in our chart and see where is the house where we have Gemini and where we have Cancer in our natal chart. Because we still have a few months that Jupiter is going to be expanding where we have the sign of Gemini in our chart. So this is still very relevant. And at the a half of the year, then Jupiter is going to enter the sign of Cancer. And this transit will help us to expand those areas of our life through new lessons, studies, teachings, belief, possible contracts, possible trips, legal resolutions, multicultural experiences. We're going to be having a spiritual growth in the area where we have Cancer. And Cancer also rules the house and the home and how we feel secure. So this transit also is going to be helping us to build a new foundation around family, about how we interact with our family, and how are our belief system, and how these belief systems that we have help us to grow, changing from limitation and from limited belief into a belief that support our expansion. And one of the biggest aspects of the year is Saturn conjunct Neptune in Aries. And this is an aspect that we haven't seen since 1989. This planetary alignment happened roughly every 36 to 37 years, so it is very significant. Additionally, they are both starting a new cycle, as I mentioned before. Aries is the beginning of the zodiac, is the first impulse of energy that creates. Therefore, this is the beginning of a new cycle for these two planets. And together they will create a new reality. And we will start discover them from a new perception. And as we change our perception of them, they change. And as they change, we change. Because this is a relationship that goes both ways. As it is above is below, as it is below is above. So we are changing together, starting this new cycle, building a new reality that marries spirituality with the physical components of this reality, building our connection with our spirituality and our intuition but are also in a practical way, in a world where we take responsibility, where where we just don't go to spirituality and escape reality. No, we build our spirituality at the same time that we take the responsibility of our actions of this world, and these two together create this new reality. To understand better the magnitude of this alignment, we need to understand better the nature of each of these planets. Saturn established the limits within a society. It is the planet that gives us the structure on how society develops. And depending on the structure, whether it is a matriarchal or patriarchal, is how we know Saturn within that society. In this patriarchal society, the image that we have of Saturn, it is masculine because Saturn also represents authority. And in a patriarchal society, the authority has been given to the male figure. But in reality, Saturn is neither female or male. It is both. It is father and its mother. Neptune, in the other hand, represents the dream of the collective, the dream of the society. It is almost opposite in nature to Saturn. While Saturn gives us the fine dimension, Neptune has no limit. Both together are doing this dance to bring the balance within our physical and spiritual nature, creating a new reality together where our physical and spiritual aspects dance together in balance. And that concludes this video. Thank you for your time. Thank you for watching and for taking your time to know more about astrology and knowing more about how the movement of the planets affect our daily life.